gentlemen, could I have your attention, please? Welcome all to the M2M World Congress 2012. We're going to start the morning session with British Gas, Vodafone and Telefonica. The British Gas Business's Managing Director, Kanat Emiroglu, is going to be talking about smart metering and mobile as the future. So please could you give a warm welcome to Kanat.
Good morning, everybody. I realize I'm a bit out of place. Who here is from the energy industry? Anybody? Okay, I'm alone. Good. All right, so my name is Kanat. I run the B2B side of British Gas in the UK. That's a business of about £4 billion of revenues, and we have about 5,800 people. But when I started 4 years ago, we had 1,400 people selling and servicing energy. And today we have 5,800, of which 3,000 are in energy services. And that's what I'm going to speak to you about today. What's happening to the way businesses use energy, and what does it mean in terms of energy efficiency, renewable generation, etc., about for the industry data flows, and how mobile will play a big role in it. I mean, you will know much more than I do how these will be created. But British Gas Business has also been a leader in smart metering. So we have 200,000 smart meters in our customer sites today. We have about 1 million customer sites, and by the end of this year, more than 50% of our electricity sites will have smart meters, and that's way ahead of our competitors. We have gone out on a limb a little bit and went ahead of the regulation because it's bringing a lot of benefits to our business. So energy, I mean, since nobody's from the energy industry, I should talk 2 minutes about the energy industry. This is the largest industry in the world, globally. It's been so for about a century, and I believe it's also going to continue being so for the next century. It influences the competitiveness of most industries, both in the services area and in the industrial production area, but also in domestic consumption. And it is a cause for war and peace. You know, most countries are not invaded because of pyjama fabrics or cheese industries. Energy plays a role usually. It's on the top 3 agenda points for most European and global presidents and prime ministers. If you look at their top 3 agenda, usually energy is somewhere in there. And its price has been extremely volatile, and it's risen. So when I entered the industry 10 years ago, oil was $12 a barrel. It rose pretty fast after the invasion of Iraq in 2003, all the way to $147. Then it fell to 30, and now it's back to 120. So very few commodities move this much. And there's a forward curve associated with it. You can buy gas with oil-linked contracts, especially in Europe, so gas is linked to it. And electricity is produced mostly by gas across Europe. About 45% of the electricity is produced there. So the volatility and the price of energy is really beginning to kind of be on the top agenda point for many executive committees across Europe. So businesses want to use less of this stuff, and they also want to generate it themselves. And the UK is really at the forefront of a lot of what's happening in energy use. There are 3.4 million business sites in the UK. About 600,000 of these are what we call relatively larger sites, and the others are small. In the small sites, 2.8 million small sites, you would have 2 to 3 large energy consuming equipment, largely left to their own devices until now. A lot will be out of kind of technology. They will be produced in West Germany in the early 70s. They won't talk to each other. Nobody will know how much energy they're using, and nobody will know when they're switched on and off, like in base time versus peak time. Peak electricity can be worth up to 10 times as much as base electricity. On average, it's worth 3.5 times more than peak electricity. So time of use is hugely important information for electricity sellers and consumers. And the other sites, the larger sites, typically have about 15, 10 to 20, but on average 15 large energy consuming equipment, and the coordination among these equipment is even more important. And the larger sites tend to be part of a multi-premised organization, like Mitchells and Butlers, 6,000 pubs, or BT with 5,500 buildings, most of them empty, and or Tesco with 1,200 stores. And talking among these stores and among different ways of using energy is also important, and is not happening today. So initially, energy efficiency is important, and energy efficiency can be attained by roughly about 30 different measures. These will be changing your boiler and making it more efficient, insulation, etc., etc. I mean, there's a curve for each business on how they can save energy. But most businesses have tended to buy energy efficiency measures store by store or region by region, and in a single sales manner. Like somebody would come and say, you should really buy solar. Why? Because we sell solar. And so it's not really a 360 understanding of the energy needs. And this hasn't worked. An integrated approach was needed, and people needed to understand their energy use as a whole, understand it statistically and quantitatively and real time, and in a comparable manner, in a benchmark manner to their competitors, not just in the UK, but best in class around the world, and do all the measures together and have their machines and their consumption measuring equipment talking to each other. And I think this is where M2M technologies come in. There's a huge opportunity to reduce the amount of energy we use. I'll give you one example which really startled me 2 years ago, when we have a big business also in the US called Direct Energy, which belongs to Centrica, the owner of British Gas. And in Wisconsin, we were at a utilities headquarters, and we analyzed the consumption data together with them, and 4%, so Wisconsin is extremely cold in the winter. I don't know if anybody has been there, but it's -20, -30. And in the winter, 4% of the electricity in the state of Wisconsin was spent on cooling buildings. I mean, so extremely important to get the data right and to get the equipment working properly. So what are we doing? Just to inspire you, I don't know exactly how M2M can help. I can have a few hypotheses, but I'm just going to inspire you by saying how we're approaching energy usage. So, and I'm taking a case example of a supermarket, and I'll anonymize it. So we take a supermarket chain with about 1,000 sites. Now, with our product called Energy Performance Contracts, we go to the supermarket chain and say, we have fitted smart meters in all your stores, all 1,000 stores. And in each store, we have fitted more than one smart meter. So we know how much you're using on heating, freezing, lighting, and other ways of energy consumption in each store. And we've analyzed this for the last year, half-hourly data. We have looked at your base usage of electricity, peak usage of electricity, and we have looked at how you use energy per pound sold in your store, per meter square in your site, and we've compared to best in class in North America. And here are the insights. And we say there are 30 ways you could save energy. In total, you use 62 million pounds of energy, and you could save, according to us, with 8 key measures, not the other 22 measures, but these 8 key measures, 30% of your electricity. And here's what you need to do. You need to change certain energy consuming equipment which are extremely inefficient, and there are more efficient ones available. So the installation of these, you need to tie them together, and you need to understand when they need to be maintained. You need to look at your best stores in terms of using energy, understand how they use energy versus your worst stores, and learn learn within your company, and you need to learn from the best in class in the industry. You can reduce your peak usage in certain stores, and you can change the time of site usage. But also then, in some of your stores, out of your 1,000 stores, 300 of them are suitable for solar energy because of where they are, their roof space, their angle, and in those places you can generate electricity in your own store. And in 10 of them you can also do wind energy. And in 2 of them we suggest you start doing biomass and fuel cell experiments so that you can see how these technologies will develop. And in addition to those, there are many subsidies that you can take advantage of in the UK. So feed-in tariffs, government's green investment bank, and many other measures that they have taken to encourage energy efficiency. At the same time, there are also many taxes, like the CRC tax, the carbon tax, and many European trading schemes, so carbon trading scheme taxes, and many other taxes. So what we try to do is bring all of these together and go straight for the executive committee of a corporation, rather than kind of a purchasing manager buying half of the electricity separately, solar separately, wind separately, or even regionally, or even by site. And this approach has been really, really successful. And we write then what we call energy performance contracts. And these are, what we say is, we have the statistical data on the 8 measures that we're proposing to you, and we know how much electricity you will save. So what we're going to do is guarantee you 17% of electricity saving for the next 3 years, and we only pay ourselves from the energy savings you create. So you don't need to spend money up front. We have arranged financing of these interventions through either a banking loan or a government loan, and we will pay ourselves through the energy savings you made. Now you can imagine the kind of monitoring and verification requirements in such a kind of large scale, long-term, multi-site, multi-measure energy performance contract. But these are the kinds of contracts that really save energy, where costs will not creep back and where behavioral change happens for good. And that's why we're able to underwrite them. So we've written 5 of these contracts in the UK now, and they are the largest of their kinds in the UK, and we've partnered with a Canadian firm and with a large consulting company, global consulting company, to be able to sell these, Canadian firm to be able to verify and monitor them. And so this is just the beginning of what I would call the energy revolution in businesses, a much more informed way, a much more interconnected way of understanding energy use and intervening in them. Of course, there will be enormous amounts of data flow involved in getting this right, both getting the solution right in terms of insights on energy use, what can be achieved, what are the best measures, which are economically viable, which are kind of nice to have but they don't pay back, and then once contracts are signed, the verification of them. And I'm not even talking about kind of remote handling of heating and lighting, which is a huge area, and Walmart uses it to perfection in the US, and which requires real-time data. And there are, of course, business continuity and safety applications of the same things. So if an oven is forgotten in one of the bakeries in Tesco's 1,000 stores, we should be able to kind of quickly see it from our control center, where we control their electricity, and maybe we call them. And similarly, on business continuity, if a boiler is going to break down in a hotel and cause them not to be able to service their customers for a few days, there are about 5 indicators we can put on the boiler to kind of predict that it's going to fail, and maintenance can be called before it does so. So all of these things rely on mobile communications and the ability of integrating this data in a meaningful way and linking it to actual actions. And this is just B2B. So I'm here for the B2B business, but in B2C, the complexity and the number of machines and the number of machines that need to talk to each other are 1 order of magnitude higher. There, it's a bit more tricky also because it's commercially less viable. The energy used per household is much less than energy used per site in a business. So then the economic understanding of energy efficiency measures matters even more. And so that's all I wanted to talk about, and I'm very happy to explore with you, how mobile communications can help this energy revolution beyond just smart meters, which was kind of intervention number 1 out of 100 interventions in my view. And the energy industry is here at the brink of this revolution, and it will create a lot of business for telecom companies, and I know a lot of you are already engaged in this, and British Gas is at the forefront of this, both at homes and in businesses. We are ahead of our competitors by a long margin in terms of smart meter installation and in terms of energy services, and it's a bit counterintuitive because these energy saving measures destroy our core product, energy. We sell less of them, but we have really taken this to heart, and we don't do this as a PR exercise or a CEO's pet project. We actually make more than £260 million profit last year from energy services businesses, both in residential and in B2B, and it's the largest energy services business of its kind in the world, more than larger than any business in the US or any business in Europe or Asia, China, Japan, etc. So we really know this, and that business has been growing for about 30% every year, and this year maybe not 30%, but it will still grow double digit. So that's all I wanted to say. Energy efficiency, we're at the brink of it, and businesses are just starting a revolution that will require a lot of your support. Thank you.
Any questions for Kim, please? Anybody in the audience? Over there. Can you just take the mic over there, gentlemen, please?
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much for your explanations, but I didn't quite capture what your benefit is in selling less energy.
Yes, okay, that's a great question. So selling less energy is obviously not beneficial to us. We lose a lot of money from that, what we call demand destruction. But there are 3 things, roughly, that make up for it. So the metering part of the value chain is extremely complicated in energy, and smart meters enable us to get the right meter read and get our bill right. And when you get the bill right, a series of operational improvements ensue, like less customer service calls, less exceptions, less errors, less backlogs, etc. All of these require quite costly operational interventions. So operating costs go down for us. Secondly, debt goes down. Debt is a huge problem in the energy industry, and when you know somebody's consumption every half an hour, when you can identify when a site goes vacant, when you can send accurate bills to a customer, they tend to pay more. So debt goes down. The third one is a bit counterintuitive, but we spend a lot of money, lose a lot of customers, and have the ability to win a lot of customers during what we call changes of tenancy. And this happens for an average business site every 8 years. And with smart meters, the process for change of tenancy management is extremely much better than with normal meters. So we tend to keep those sites longer. We tend to spend less doing the change of tenancy, and we tend to be able to win a second fuel during the change of tenancy if we get the bill right exactly, etc. So all 3. In businesses, in my business at least, in B2B space, a smart meter pays out immediately in months because of these 3 things. The equation is less clear in residential households because the energy usage is less, and each household's net present value of a customer is less, etc. Does that answer the question?